Chosen one, why God is clearing your circle. The room goes quiet, not the peaceful kind of quiet, but the heavy, echoing silence of a shrinking world. You look around at the empty chairs at your table and wonder what you did wrong. Why is everyone leaving? Have you ever felt this sudden, terrifying isolation? I want to hear your real story in the comments below, because this space is for honest conversations. It starts slowly. A missed text here, a canceled plan there. At first, you tell yourself it's just life. People get busy. People get caught up in the endless rush of their own survival. But then the silence stretches. It deepens. It wraps around your shoulders like a heavy winter coat that you can't take off. You start to notice the patterns. The friend who was supposed to be your anchor in the storm, suddenly nowhere to be found when your skies turn gray. The family member whose love always felt just a little too conditional, just a little too sharp around the edges, finally cutting the cord. It hurts. It burns in a very specific, hollow way in the center of your chest. You sit on the edge of your bed at 2 a.m, bathed in the blue glow of your phone, scrolling through old photos, smiling faces, warm embraces, summers that felt endless, and inside jokes that felt like a secret language. Now, those pictures look like artifacts from a civilization that doesn't exist anymore. You ask yourself a question we all ask in the dark. What is wrong with me? Why am I so difficult to love? Why am I so easy to leave behind? It feels like a curse. It feels like you are walking through the world with a giant neon sign pointing down at you, warning everyone away. You try to grip the relationships tighter. You compromise your boundaries. You bite your tongue when they disrespect you. You shrink yourself down, folding into tinier and tinier boxes, just hoping they won't walk out the door. But they do anyway. The truth is, when a massive shift is coming, the space around you has to be cleared. But right now, in the thick of the descent, it doesn't feel like a divine clearing. It feels like absolute abandonment. You look at the people who walked away, and you see all the time you invested, the late-night phone calls where you listened to them cry, the money you lent, the grace you gave them when they broke your trust. Over and over again, you poured your soul into cups with holes in the bottom, and now you are the one dying of thirst. There's a profound grief in this realization. We don't just mourn the loss of the person. We mourn the illusion of who we thought they were. We mourn the future we had painted in our minds, the one where they were standing right there beside us. And the hardest part isn't even the leaving. It's the way they left. Some leave with fireworks. They toss matches onto the bridge as they cross it, making sure you feel the heat of their resentment. They project their own insecurities onto you, painting you as a villain in their story so they don't have to face their own shadows. Others just fade. They become ghosts in your contact list. That might be worse. The slow fade leaves you holding on to a fragile thread of hope, waiting for a text that is never going to come. You start to isolate yourself, not out of peace, but out of protection. If you don't let anyone in, they can't leave. If you don't build the table, you don't have to look at the empty chairs. You build a fortress. You pull up the drawbridge. You tell yourself you are fine alone, that you don't need anyone. But deep down, there's a quiet, trembling part of you that just wants to be chosen. You want to be chosen by the people you chose. But the universe is moving in the background. It sees what you cannot see. It hears the conversations happening in rooms you haven't entered. It knows the true intentions hiding behind the plastic smiles. Still, The human heart doesn't understand the long game. The heart only understands that it is breaking. It feels like you are walking through a dense, foggy forest. The trees are stripping their leaves, shedding the dead weight to survive the incoming winter, and you are being forced to do the same. But pulling away from these people feels like tearing off a layer of your own skin. It is raw. It is bloody. It is agonizing. You wonder if you're going crazy. You wonder if your standards are too high. You wonder if you should just accept the breadcrumbs of affection you were given, because maybe breadcrumbs are better than starving. This is the deepest, darkest part of the valley. This is the moment where the loneliness threatens to swallow you whole. You are standing in the wreckage of your own social circle, covered in the dust of broken promises, breathing in the cold air of isolation. You stay in that wreckage for a long time. You let the cold air bite at your skin. You let the grief run its course, flooding your chest until you think you might drown in the sheer unfairness of it all. And then you wake up one morning. The sky is a flat, unbothered gray. The house is still quiet. You make your coffee. You listen to the hum of the refrigerator. But the silence feels different today. It no longer feels like the silence of a graveyard. It feels like the silence of a sanctuary. There is a profound, hidden mechanism to the universe, a silent gear turned behind the thick curtain of our daily lives. As human beings, we only see what is placed directly in front of us. We see the text message that was left on read. We see the sudden, cold shoulder. We see the betrayal and the slammed doors. But God sees the root system. Imagine, for a second, a massive, ancient oak tree. Over the years, vines have started to crawl up its trunk. At first, they look beautiful. They added color. They made the tree look lush and full of life. But beneath the surface, those vines are invasive. They are slowly, methodically digging into the bark, drinking the tree's water, stealing its sunlight, and quietly choking the life out of its branches. The tree doesn't know it is dying. It just knows it feels tired. You were that tree. You were a battery. You didn't realize it, but you were walking around radiating this intense, beautiful light, and you were surrounded by people who had forgotten how to generate their own. So they plugged into you. They took your warmth. They took your empathy. They took your endless capacity to listen. When you complained, they called you sensitive. When you finally gathered the courage to set a boundary, they called you selfish. God saw that. The universe saw you slowly dimming, slowly die on the vine just to keep everyone else comfortable. And so a divine intervention took place. The storm didn't come to destroy your life. The storm was sent to rip the parasites off your bark. It had to be forceful. It had to be violent. It had to hurt. Why? Because you are stubborn. Because your heart is so incredibly big, and your capacity for forgiveness is so endlessly vast, that if the universe had just politely asked those people to leave, you would have begged them to stay. You would have made 1,000 excuses for their bad behavior. You would have blamed yourself for their cruelty. So, the universe had to make their toxicity so loud, so undeniably brutal, and so incredibly painful that you had no choice but to let go. Think about the concept of a deep-sea diver. The deeper you go into the ocean, the more intense the pressure becomes. It requires a specific type of biological engineering to survive in those dark, heavy waters. The colorful little fish that swim near the sunny surface cannot survive in the deep. The pressure would crush them instantly. You are diving deeper into your own purpose. You are exploring the absolute depths of who you are meant to be. The people who are falling away from you simply do not have the lungs for where you are going. They were surface-level companions. They were built for the easy days, the sunny days, the days when you asked for nothing and gave everything. They are not equipped for the immense pressure of your growth. If they tried to dive with you, they would panic. They would drag you back up to the shallows where they feel safe, entirely at the expense of your evolution. It isn't necessarily that they are inherently evil villains. It is simply that their chapter in your book is over. The ink is completely dry. The page is turning. But you keep trying to flip backward. You keep trying to rewrite a scene that has already ended. Let the page turn. Notice how, since they left, something subtle has shifted in your physical body. Your jaw isn't clenched quite as tight anymore. The chronic, heavy knot in your stomach, the one you thought was just a permanent part of your anatomy, has started to loosen its grip. You aren't walking on eggshells in your own living room. You aren't obsessively dissecting every word you say, absolutely terrified of triggering someone else's fragile, unpredictable ego. You can finally breathe. This is the space clearing. This is the divine fumigation of your life. It requires you to stand completely still in the emptiness and not rush to fill it. That is the hardest test you will face right now. When the space abruptly opens up, our human instinct is to panic. We want to drag anyone off the street just to occupy the empty chair. We download the apps. We text the toxic ex. We go to the loud, crowded party we don't even want to be at just to hear the background noise of other human voices, so we don't have to listen to our own thoughts. Don't do it. Let the chair sit empty. An empty chair is a remarkably sacred thing. It is a quiet, powerful invitation for the right person, the right energy, to eventually walk through the door. But if you keep your table cluttered with the ghosts of people who didn't respect you, the right ones will take one look at the mess and keep walking. You are being prepared. A vessel must be emptied out completely before it can be filled with something pure. You are full of muddy water. You are filled to the brim with other people's anxieties, their unspoken jealousies, their hidden resentments, and their subtle, daily manipulations. God tipped the cup over. The water spilled out into the dirt. Yes, you feel empty right now. Yes, it echoes loudly inside when you speak. But you are finally clean. Think of a rough piece of gold being thrown into a blazing furnace. The fire is brutal. The heat is blinding. The gold melts down, losing its original shape, losing everything it thought it was. But in the agonizing, inescapable heat, the impurities, the dross, the dirt, the cheaper metals that secretly weaken its structure, burn away into smoke. The people who were meant to fall away were the impurities. They were the elements compromising your strength. You are the gold. The isolation is the furnace. It is not a grave you have been buried in. It is a forge where you are being remade. You are being hammered into something entirely indestructible. And it is funny, isn't it? How aggressively we fight the very thing that is trying to save us. We cling desperately to the fire hazards in our lives purely because we are afraid of the dark. We hold tightly onto hands that are holding knives behind their backs just because we are desperate to be held by someone. No more. The universe has successfully stripped you of your distractions. These toxic relationships were allowed. They demanded all your energy. They kept you trapped in a constant, exhausting state of putting out emotional fires. Now there are no fires. There is only you. You have to look at yourself in the mirror. You have to finally face the parts of you that allowed them in to begin with. You have to confront the deep-seated, Terrifying fear of abandonment that made you accept far less than you deserve for far too long. This is exactly why the clearing is so incredibly painful. Because once the toxic people are finally gone, the noise stops. You are left completely alone with yourself. And that is the ultimate reckoning. But it is also the beginning of your ultimate freedom. The freedom feels strange at first. It feels too quiet. You walk through your days and expect a sudden text, the emergency, the drama that used to spike your adrenaline. But the phone just sits there. And slowly, very slowly, your nervous system begins to realize that the war is over. You don't have to fight for your place at the table anymore. You own the whole house. You start to notice the little things again. The way the morning light hits the floorboards in your kitchen. The taste of your coffee, unruined by the lingering dread of someone else's bad mood. The profound, luxurious comfort of going to sleep knowing that nobody is out there plotting against your peace of mind. You are healing. It doesn't look like a montage in a movie. It isn't a sudden explosion of joy and endless sunshine. Healing is quiet. It is a simple, radical act of no longer abandoning yourself to keep someone else around. When you look in a mirror now, you don't see the bruised, exhausted version of yourself that spent years begging to be understood. You see the survivor. You see the calm eyes of someone who knows exactly what it costs to let the wrong people in. And you are never paying that price again. You look at the empty chairs in your life. They don't look like graves anymore. They look like open fields. You begin to realize that isolation was never a punishment. It was a chrysalis. It was a protective barrier built by something greater than you, wrapping you up in silk so you could dissolve and rebuild without anyone poking at your fragile, changing form. Think of the winter, when the snow covers the earth. It looks dead. It looks completely barren. But beneath that freezing, hard dirt, seeds are resting. They aren't dying. They are gathering their strength. They are quietly waiting for the perfect temperature, the exact right moment to break through the soil. Your winter is ending. The toxic roots have been pulled. The soil of your life has been turned over, aerated and purified by the cold. When your spring finally comes, the growth will be undeniable. But it won't be choked by the weeds of other people's jealousy or manipulation. It will be entirely yours. You are stronger now. The gold has cooled and it is solid. When you finally step outside, you carry a different energy. You aren't radiating that frantic, people-pleasing desperation anymore. You are grounded. You walk with the heavy, unshakable grace of someone who has survived the burning down of their own world and realized they were the fireproof one all along. People will look at you differently. Some will find you intimidating. The ones who are used to easily manipulated targets will sense the steel in your spine, and they will walk the other way. Let them walk. You don't need a large circle. You just need a true one. You will eventually start to let people in again. But this time, the toll is different. The price of admission to your life is peace. If they don't bring it, they don't get a seat. It is that simple. You will never again negotiate your own boundaries just to keep the room full. There's a profound, quiet dignity in where you are right now. You have stopped grieving the loss of poison. You have stopped drinking the venom just because you were thirsty. You are finally learning how to hydrate your own soul. So, breathe in the quiet. Soak in the emptiness. It is not a void waiting to swallow you. It is a canvas waiting for you to paint your real life, finally, on your own terms. You are not abandoned. You are chosen. You were cleared out so you could finally, truly begin. Putting together these stories takes hours of dedication. If this video brought you peace today, you can buy me a coffee using the Ko-Fi link in the description. Your voluntary support keeps this channel alive. Thank you for listening.